Great stuff. Great stuff. Yeah, good job.
Great session that was about AI and the technology and how things are continuing to transform and change. As a note, there's an AI Experience Center hosted by Alibaba at the front entrance of this hall. Be sure that you check that out before you leave or sometime over the course of today or tomorrow while you're here at the conference. On that note, I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Robert Ilas. I'm the CEO of Martini Incentives. And today's panel that I'm joined by other experts in the field of sourcing is all the stuff that goes on with the sourcing, the hard truths of sourcing, and everything that most entrepreneurs may not realize that consume our lives, and how we're solving problems for entrepreneurs, SMBs, and large enterprises all throughout, and how we continue to offer those services. On that note, I would like to turn it over to my esteemed expert over here, Kerim. Kerim, I'm sorry, down here. Go ahead and share something introduce yourself, and please share something about your company.
Thank you so much, Rob. My name is Kerim Kfuri. I'm the president of a company called the Atlas Network. We are a global supply chain solutions company. Our focus is on helping small, mid-size, and larger businesses avoid many of the pitfalls in the mass production and sourcing process. And we've been doing this for almost 20 years. Honored to be here at the Alibaba Co-Create Summit, and excited to have a conversation with these great gentlemen about it and with you all. Thank you.
Great. Jason?
Hey everyone, my name is Jason Wong. I was a merchant. I started off as a merchant 10 years ago, and 6 years ago I started my company, Saucy. We're a sourcing and logistics company based out of China and Hong Kong. And just like everyone else on a panel here, it was really to help people navigate a lot of challenges overseas, things that they might not know about, because truly it is a black box, even for some of us still. But pleasure to be here and excited to talk about the hard truth and behind the scenes of what goes on in sourcing.
Awesome. Ahmad?
Hi guys, my name is Ahmad Noory. I'm a partner at the Source Squad. The Source Squad, we empower collaboration between suppliers and Amazon sellers. The company was formed based out of a need for Amazon sellers. We manage a group of about 11,000 Amazon sellers across 4 countries and 17 cities. And there was a major need for collaboration between suppliers and these Amazon sellers. So Source Squad was formed, and very happy to be here and share the stage with these amazing people.
Great, thanks for sharing. I also just wanted to touch on a little bit about what my company, Martini Incentives, does in this space of sourcing. We all are, in a sense, complementary as to the services that we're offering. There is some overlap, but I feel what you're gonna glean out of this conversation amongst the 4 of us today will hopefully help you understand where there could be some challenges, where there's pitfalls, how to navigate logistics. There's so many things that go into launching an idea. You can use AI, as we saw, to kind of come up with ideas. But then how do you negotiate and find the right factory? How do you find the right product, ensure quality? There's a lot of things that go into that, and with Martini Incentives, what we do is we're a bridge between brands that are looking for packaging or unique promotional products or merchandise, and understanding and working with partners like these gentlemen here to be able to navigate quality control assurances, line site visibility, logistics, also addressing the need with Amazon sellers, like how do we help set them up for success, and everything that I feel that we'll be able to discuss here is going to touch on all those things, so that way it becomes like hopefully more lucid to you and how you can approach taking the difficulties of sourcing out of the equation. On that note, we're all unique in that sense, right? I kind of touched on my company's abilities and what we're focused on. Relates back to customer service. Price is always going to be a factor in any conversation during every meeting. But what we've built our company on is around customer service and quality. That consistency has allowed us to be able to scale in terms of how we continue to pick up customers at an aggressive clip. And frankly, if I go back 5 years ago, I could not have envisioned this growth to happen this way. How are you gentlemen handling your uniqueness and how you're helping and where you're seeing opportunities for growth to help entrepreneurs and SMBs throughout the sourcing stage?
For us, a lot of our members within our community are fairly new Amazon sellers, and so there's a big need for education within that realm, with new entrepreneurs looking to launch a brand, looking to launch their products within the Amazon world, but not really understanding what it takes to actually collaborate and find the right suppliers, the process that it takes to actually go from product ideation to finding a supplier to getting the actual samples done, negotiating the prices, and then what happens after your products are done? How do you list it back on Amazon? So we really focus on education. We have virtual meetings bi-weekly with our members, and education has become sort of the big part of trying to help the newer Amazon sellers actually understand how to launch and then grow and scale their businesses through platforms like Alibaba onto marketplaces like Amazon.
The way that I made my company was to create a company that I will want to have as a merchant. So I started off as a merchant 10 years ago, and a lot of challenges that I had were communication issues, quality issues, the standard stuff that sourcing companies help merchants with right now. But another point that I also realized was before the sourcing side, a lot of the marketing research, the competitive analysis, stuff that merchants do know somewhat, but they still need help with, that's what we provide. So we have category experts within our firm. If you want to do beauty products, personal care products, we have consultants that we provide complimentary as a service to help you through the initial development process, to help you do the research, to figure out what are the functions and marketable angles for your products. And then it's post-sourcing that we also help with too. Growth levers that we can help pull, we also help with sometimes pricing strategies, research on that front. So I mean, in terms of like sourcing, a lot of stuff are standardized now, right? Like most companies can do the same stuff between all of us, but where we really stand is like I try to sprinkle in the stuff that I would want as a merchant from my own experience to help a lot of my companies, a lot of my clients who are, some of them are just having an idea on a napkin and the other ones are just starting to run, but they still don't know where to head to yet.
Absolutely. Kerim?
Yeah, I mean, just to touch upon what these gentlemen have said, the key is education for sure. We've been in this business for quite a while, almost 2 decades, and what I can tell you is that what has not changed has been to have a very formal approach to ensure that you can do proper risk mitigation. So many things can go wrong in the sourcing business and mass production business, where mass production can become mass disaster very quickly if things are not in form and in place properly. So we have always taken an approach which starts with picking the right suppliers. We then have on-the-ground resources and then usually third-party attestation to ensure that productions come out the way that they are supposed to be, and that, quite honestly, that every production is the first time. Things change all of the time, and with this in mind, you have to have that in consideration, that there are differences that may occur within a supply chain, and you have to be ready for those differences and be ready to accommodate changes. So appropriate oversight and management is quite important to the process.
I agree with pretty much all these points, and these are challenges that we help our clients overcome too. I really find it fascinating with what you're doing, Ahmad, especially in the Amazon marketplace. As entrepreneurs they're seeing what's going on in the market, in e-commerce, right? Ideas are launched every day. I can only imagine how many pitfalls there are, right? Is there any sort of example or anecdote that you could share with general or specific that kind of might speak to some of the Amazon sellers in the room?
How much time do we have? Yeah, there are a lot of pitfalls, especially for newer sellers, newer entrepreneurs who have heard about the possibilities of being a brand owner and using marketplaces like Amazon to actually launch their products. One example, we recently have had a client that came to us. They had watched some YouTube videos, understood a little bit about how to find products using Alibaba, and they had went ahead and just purchased the products and they sent over 24 pallets from China to here. They didn't know how to use freight forwarders, so the pallets were stuck in a port in China. They didn't know how to set up their listings on Amazon. So although they had purchased about 5,000 units of a product, they didn't have a listing to send it to Amazon. There's a lot of this type of aggressive need, and people who really want to jump into the business, really want to jump in and start taking a piece of the pie that Amazon or marketplaces like it provide for them, but they don't there's a very little knowledge, and the learning curve is very steep when you're first launching this. When you're first launching a brand, when you're first launching a product, the learning curve is pretty steep, and if you don't know what you're doing and you haven't gone through mentoring or coaching or actually learning the process, you can make some very expensive and very, very time-consuming mistakes, and that's just one of those examples. And since then, we have helped this client create his listings. His product was very generic, so we've now on the second variation of the second version of the same product, where there's a lot of differentiators within those products, and they're catching up to the losses that they had incurred. But it's those type of stories come to us almost weekly.
Sounds like you definitely helped them turn around their product, the process of logistics, how to get their products onto Amazon. So, and it sounds like they're moving on into the right direction now. This is definitely one of the hard truths of sourcing, right? When it comes to all the pitfalls and the ambitions there, right? Entrepreneurs are looking for ways to monetize ideas, be fast to market, but there's definitely a protocol. There's a system that should be followed, and I'd like Kerim to kind of like touch on this a little bit more, because I just feel this gentleman has a wealth of knowledge when it comes to systems and quality control. Tell us more. I know you touched on it, but can you explain more, like maybe tie into Ahmad's example of like how he helped solve a problem, but it was after the fact. How could an Amazon seller that's looking to scale leverage your services to kind of like help them avoid those pitfalls?
Sure, thank you. Well, what I would say first and foremost is that Alibaba is a great resource to begin the process of at least trying to find the right supplier. Alibaba has taken a lot of efforts to create verified programs and things of that nature to really help potential customers sort through who may be a good supplier. That's the first step, and that can happen either, again, through a system like Alibaba or other ways. But that first step of the right supplier is quite critical. And when you're looking at the right supplier, it's a mixture of quantitative and qualitative factors that are very important to look at. Quantitative factors are going to be such as years in business, number of employees, levels of revenue, exports to the market that you're trying to sell in, and so forth. So do they have a knowledge, do they have an understanding of what you're trying to do as a business? The quantitative factors are going to be things such as professionalism, timeliness, what kind of proposal they're putting in front of you, how is the communication between you and this potential supplier. So that first step is quite critical in the process of being able to have an effective production. Then a next step is meeting your supplier. It's very important that you are able to be there in attendance if you can be, and if you can't be, groups like ours and so forth are in existence that can be your eyes and ears on the ground. Because quite honestly, there is a big divide between the incentives of a customer and those of a factory. And this is globally, right? What does a customer want? They want every single I dotted and every single T crossed. What does a supplier want or a factory want? They want to finish the project and move on to the next project. These are opposing philosophies. So what bridges that gap is going to be a platform such as Alibaba and additional services like some of the ones that we offer to bridge this divide, eyes and ears on the ground, so forth. And then finally, it's always a great idea to have third-party attestation. This is going to be third-party QC firms that can come in and can give you a clean bill of health as well to ensure that what you have decided upon is in line with industry standards as well as what your own AQL standards that you may have provided and key points to look out for. So again, this is a very methodical process that requires a bit of a regulated approach to really get a great outcome, especially when you're trying to do custom OEM projects, making ideas into reality. And sometimes it doesn't even get solved the first time. Sometimes a production has to happen and you learn a few things, but hopefully you learn them before you ship them, right? So you learn these things, and then you look for areas of improvement. And if you're with a good factory, they're willing to be a good partner to you and to improve those things as well jointly. So that's a little bit about, I would say, the kind of more formal approach to this.
Yeah, definitely sounds like definitely communication is key. Understanding the actual manufacturer's facilities, but also having a resource like your companies and your teams on the ground overseas can kind of mitigate that for somebody that may not have access to those resources to travel halfway around the world. Jason, I know you're heavily involved with logistics as well. When it comes to hard truths, what can you share that you just know it comes up more often than not, and how you overcome those challenges?
I think the hard truth is that people think it's easier and faster than it actually is. They'll always think that. The number that you see is not always the number that you'll get. Just add a couple more days after that. And if you're planning ahead of time, the hard truth is that most of the time, if you plan ahead and then plan ahead a little bit more, you'll be in an okay place. If you plan ahead a lot, you'll be in a pretty good place. But if you just plan, you're going to be in a pretty difficult spot because things always go wrong. You just have to prepare for the worst case scenario, especially in logistics. Sometimes there's a chain, a link in the chain for the freight route that gets broken down. For whatever reasons, just expect the worst to happen. Sometimes it may get stuck at customs. Sometimes it may get stuck at a certain point. You just always have to expect that to happen. So sometimes we work with customers who just thinks that shipments can magically appear through a portal. In their head, they're like, well, everyone gets things done in 22 days. Why does it take 27? It was like, yeah, I mean, you didn't consider the fact that you, one, sometimes pay the invoice late. Two, you didn't consider that all these other stuff before and after that needs to take place. It's not just on the ship immediately after the factory. We need to truck stuff to the port, back here, clear customs, and then ship it to your door. People need to consider that you need to give yourself a lot more cushion than you think.
I can agree with you on that 100%, and how we advise our clients. There's many different ways to get your finished product and your finished good that's in a nicely packaged box waiting at the port to leave China or whatever the country of export, excuse me. But more times than not, if you, just personal insights from what my company, and I'm sure you guys can all attest to this too, packaging your product for departure, and if you're using an air carrier, most entrepreneurs are going to be shocked when they see their cartons show up from DHL or FedEx, and it's not the factory's fault. It's questions that, as seasoned veterans in sourcing, we know these challenges. But a new seller on Amazon, unless they're educated, they may not know how to ask these questions to a supplier. So from our perspective, there's a lot of hard truths when it comes to sourcing. We always try to stay ahead of it, and we know how to manage our clients' goals and needs as we meet with them, and then we have our conversations directly with the manufacturer, With regards to the platform of Alibaba.com, from my perspective, there's a number of benefits. Like, what can a new seller or buyer on the Alibaba platform come to expect, or what are the features that can really do a huge service to them? One of the ones that we rely on is the payment options. When it comes to sourcing, you can find a number of products. And I'm gonna let Kerim also speak to this one, because he's a big believer in making sure you know your supplier, but you also you got the right product. So I'll let him jump into that in a second as I finish. But with regards to making sure you understand like the logistics and the parameters around that, you have to, starting a company online, it's not as easy as it sounds. You can't necessarily do your homework on YouTube. I mean, you can learn a lot, but firsthand experience and working with agencies like ours are going to help you navigate that. Going back to knowing your supplier and knowing your products and using the Alibaba platform, the thing I did want to touch on is payment options. So anytime that you're starting out, you're bootstrapped, you're using your personal funds, your family investment, you're finding ways to kind of bring that product to market. And buying the product is one thing, but you have to factor in logistics. And I touch on logistics a lot because it is one of the biggest challenges with sourcing and bringing products in. So if you don't account for that, you're only getting your product finished and it's not getting to your door. But when it comes to payment options, there's a lot of payment options available on the Alibaba platform that our company leverages to remain liquid. And it allows us to manage that cash flow, because not all of our clients are paying us up front. A lot of them will ask for terms, net 7, net 30, net 60, net 90. So in order for us to kind of like mitigate the cash flow while our revenue is strong, we may get an order for 7 figures come in the door, and we need to be able to account for that. And that's a big shift. But we've been able to navigate that, and with the financing options and the resources available through Alibaba.com, that's one of the biggest features I see a lot of value in, aside from trade assurance and all the other things. Kerim, go ahead and share anything that you feel like what you love about the Alibaba platform as far as sourcing goes.
Sure. I mean, I would basically say the expansive reach. You have a platform that has millions of people coming and going on it, over, I think, close to 500,000 suppliers and factories. You couldn't get a better sort of research and development tool as a new brand trying to do something. Simply going to that platform and typing in words of a product similar to what you're trying to sell or develop or make will very quickly give you an understanding of what currently exists, what you may be looking to do, or possibly give you some innovative ideas. So I think that it's a very good sort of good research and development tool, because as small to mid-sized businesses, you come up with a great idea and you think you're alone in that. But the reality of it is that for every good idea, there's probably 10 other people who have a similar idea or some kind of a take on it. And it's good for you to understand not necessarily your competition, but what exists out there to be able to then make your deviations or your changes. And then that also goes into the supplier side, where as you then dig a little deeper into those products and who are the suppliers or manufacturers of those, what do their kind of terms and conditions look like? What are their payment terms? What are their sort of mechanisms on production timeframes and timelines? So when we have customers come to us with different RFQs, we always go to at least 4 to 5, maybe even 6 different suppliers that are verified. Why? Understand the landscape, to to understand the differences between this group, this region, this technology, this manufacturing capability, and really you then kind of hone into what's the reality and the truth of what that product looks like, how to produce it, how to facilitate it, and so on. So I do think that the Alibaba platform provides this level of expansive research that people can get access to in a very convenient way, and that can give you some very strong business kind of thoughts and kind of direction as to which way you may want to take your product.
Absolutely. Jason, where do you leverage the Alibaba platform and being able to manage your business?
I heard someone today mention that finding a supplier is like dating, and I do agree to that. I think Alibaba lets you know what you like. Sometimes you think you know what you like and you think you know what you're looking for, but when you have access to so many options all at once in front of you, you find a lot of inspirations for things that you didn't even think was possible, right? Like you think I can make a box this way, but turns out it can actually go 6 other ways. You can only find it when you're able to shop around, and at the end of the day, a lot of people start this business not knowing a lot of stuff, and the biggest challenge is like you don't really know what you don't know. But as you see a lot of references, as you go through the profiles, and as you understand the capabilities of machines that are used, the stuff that they have done in the past, it gives you a lot of ideas to Frankenstein your own product. So I love to use it as a research tool. I love to use it as a verification tool too.
To touch on that, so as an entrepreneur, somebody that's coming into this with a brand new product, you go to Alibaba.com, you type in the parameters of what the product are. To your point, sometimes it could be overwhelming, the number of responses. How are you vetting out, like, basically who you communicate with, or are you using the RFQ feature more? How do you guys manage this?
Yeah, we'll use RFQ features. At the beginning, I just created a spreadsheet, but now that you could do it in the platform. But back in the day, I had a spreadsheet of all the suppliers. I'll fill in their supplier verified information. I look at the type of machines that they have, how many employees they have, what kind of certifications that their business has. But then I'll also look at their trade history, their export. A lot of stuff that Kerim touched on is the stuff that I also look for. And I'll basically create a list of 10, 15 suppliers and start narrowing it in and start talking. And from like the first few conversations, you generally know who you want to work with based on what you're looking for. There's all sorts of businesses on the platform. There's manufacturers and trading companies, and there's trading companies. They all have their own benefits based on what your goals are. And if you have a certain goal that aligns better with working with a trading company, so be it. If you want to go direct to manufacturers to have a lot more options that you might be looking for, you could do that too. But you generally can figure that out from the first couple conversations with all these people, narrow it down to 5, get samples from 5, narrow that down to 3, and then pick your final one.
No, that's a great process. I think we follow similar lines of, like how to get that list of 15 down to like 3 to 4 that we feel are the best fit for our products, and then being able to spend time there, right? Because it'll be counterproductive if you just try to go with every option that's out there. It's not reasonable. Ahmad, how are you leveraging the features on Alibaba.com to build your network with your Amazon sellers and everything that you're doing there?
Coming from a background of selling on Amazon, but specifically from running and managing groups of Amazon sellers who are fairly new, one of the things that we've seen is, when the MOQ is low, 500 or 1,000 units, the seller does not really know what they're looking for, and sometimes the defect rates can be pretty high in the first, second, or third orders. The trade assurance part of Alibaba is it's such an amazing tool to have, that peace of mind for the sellers. So from our perspective, we always make sure that all of our members know that if you're going to be ordering through Alibaba, make sure you order through trade assurance. Make sure you have trade assurance, because especially in the beginning, you want to make sure that you're protected, because you don't know what you don't know. And until you do, you want to have that peace of mind that Alibaba has your back, and they will help you, negotiate and fix any issues that might come up. And the fact that Alibaba is so open to listening and getting feedback from its members, its users, and innovating their platform to meet those needs is absolutely amazing. A few years ago, if you had an issue and you went through trade assurance, you would have to ship, and you came to a resolution, you'd have to ship your products all the way back to your supplier. Now, Alibaba has a warehouse domestically in the US where you can just ship it there. That saves you a ton of money. Shipping costs are not cheap. So the fact that Alibaba can actually and does actually go through and listen to the feedback of its users is an amazing, amazing thing.
Absolutely. In terms of changes, our marketplace continues to evolve and change in the field of sourcing every day. The last 12 months has seen another shift with the way that buyers are sourcing their products. In each one of your eyes, what are you seeing? What are the biggest changes that you've seen in buyer behavior and what they're looking for? And also anything that you have to add, maybe on the seller perspective from the supplier side, from the factory level. Kerim, what are your thoughts there?
Yes, what I would say is buyers are not chasing dollars as much. What they're really chasing is they're chasing dependability and consistency of their supply chain. And this is a big shift, and I think that this happened in the last few years due to many of the supply chain issues we've had globally. And the reality of it is that it's more outcome-driven than sort of short-term focus. And I think that that's a very important and kind of mature philosophy that's kind of permeating the global supply chain landscape right now. Because I remember, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, the first question is what's it going to cost? Or how do we get the cost down? How do you sharpen your pencil? And these other kinds of ideas around getting the lowest cost solution. Whereas now, my conversations more revolve around, are we going to be okay? We're going to be able to produce dependably. We're going to be able to make sure that things are in place and so on and so forth. And I think that that's good because the focus is now upon a lot of these philosophies that Alibaba has been promoting and pushing for many years, which is the verification of the suppliers and these trade assurance programs and things of that nature, which have always been important, but now even more so have a spotlight upon these things. So I think that Alibaba is very well positioned, and doing this great seminar with so many industry specialists and things of that nature is only a testament to this philosophy. But that's what I see. I see more these days that it's not so much chasing the dollar. That's what I see.
Great.
I saw the same thing, and that was a change that's been happening for the past few years. I think from a merchant's perspective, we have to chase after outcome because competition increased so much over the past few years with more DTC founders coming in and creating products that it's not just being the cheapest anymore. We have to be differentiated. We have to find new functions to market against all these other people coming in. We need better packaging. We need more buttons for a certain product. We need more marketable angles that it's can the supplier make it rather than can they make it for 20 cents less, right? But so that's for the past few years. I think in the recent year, a noticeable change I've had is that it shifted from a buyer's market, from a brand market during the pandemic when not a lot of businesses were happening from the vendor side because of all the close down and whatnot, that we had a lot more leeway, a lot more flexibility to asking for better terms, more flexibility in all these other stuff. But then in the past year when everything opened up again, it shifted back into a vendor market in a sense where they're like, well, actually, I'm not gonna take a MOQ of X, I only want you to go here. Whereas a year ago they would have, rather than letting you to negotiate price and terms around the first bat, they're gonna be like, well, unless we have a history with you, we're not going to be that flexible. So that's the change in the past year, and then the larger change in the past 6-7 years.
Absolutely.
And following COVID, we saw a lot of our larger clients look to start diversifying away from China. There was a big fear out there. And in the last 12 to 18 months, what we have seen, being at the forefront of it, helping them sort of find sourcing opportunities near shore or onshore, is that the expectation that we have working with Chinese suppliers, especially verified suppliers through Alibaba, you can't have those same expectations when you're going near shore. You know, if you're going to Latin America, if you're going to Mexico, the landscape is very different, the culture is very different, and it's not, we're used to a certain way of working with factories that understand e-commerce, that understand the nuances of what it means to be a smaller brand or a medium-sized brand. And so what we're seeing in the last 12 months or so is the shift back towards saying, all right, so it's not as simple as just we're going to take our manufacturing away from China and into Mexico, because it just won't happen. You know, the manufacturers in China, a factory might be able to make 100, 200 products, whereas in Mexico, they can make 3. They're very specialized. And if you don't know the culture, if you don't know the nuances of how to communicate with them, you're not going to be able to find a factory that can make your widget for you.
Kerim, you were going?
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I agree with that. But at the same time, I think one thing that we all saw that was very intriguing to us was one of the bulletin boards that was outside that showed Alibaba's very diligent attempts to grow the global network. And I think that that's going to be a very strong and sophisticated idea going forward with global suppliers, where this application of the verification processes and so on is going to be widespread, and hopefully, you know, it will basically go to other parts of the world also. So, you know, I give Alibaba a lot of credit for really looking to focus on the world, you know, being global in this philosophy, which they have always been, but even making some more dedicated efforts to this. And I think that that's going to be the benefit to the globe for that.
And the platform, when you do go through the platform and find suppliers outside of China, Alibaba, any supplier that comes on Alibaba, they are sort of working under the same umbrella as a Chinese company. So as users, we now know that we can deal with them, we can work with them, and they can satisfy our needs. Whereas if you try to do it on your own, if you try to go out there and try to find factories in different countries, each country has its own nuanced culture and its own nuanced way of doing business, and there's no way we would, unless you have some kind of feet on the ground and some way of understanding that culture, there's no way you would know what to do. The amazing thing with Alibaba's global reach is the fact that now they're going to make everything sort of uniform across all countries, which is, again, an amazing thing.
Yeah, it's that connectedness and having the same standards across different geos that it's going to be able to enable the buyers on Alibaba's platform to have access to new markets. While to your point, many of the factories, if you look at Mexico or one of the other countries that are starting to come online, they're very specific on the products that you can get. Whereas with the diversification and the establishment of these sophisticated factories in China, they're producing 100, 200 SKUs out of these equipment lines in these manufacturing facilities. And you know, one thing that we did touch on, and it may not be necessarily available to everybody in the room, but I do encourage like forming these relationships directly with the manufacturers and suppliers on Alibaba. The communication goes the distance. Like, I personally can attest that the amount of time and energy that we put into developing the relationships with our suppliers really helps us move through our orders, I feel, faster than any of our competitors. And I hear it back from our clients when they're shocked and they see their 50,000 piece bag order at their warehouse in 3 to 4 weeks. And that's not an easy task to deliver on, coming from, considering the setups and everything that goes into the production side of it with the packaging that we focus on. But relationships are key. I know in our conversation back before we came up here, I think you guys could all agree, like they value our business and the work that we do. But I think we all have the same sort of pedigree too when it comes to how we communicate, and we appreciate our suppliers for that hard work. To me, I feel like those relationships, you can't put a price on that.
And I'll take that a step further even. Relationships are the cornerstone of any successful business, but you need to cultivate a relationship. A lot of people believe that business relationships are separate from personal relationships. I am not of that mindset, because I think that if you make it personal, you get to know your representative, your contacts and the factories that are serving you, and you make it personal with them. You get to know them as an individual. If you have the ability to go and visit the factories, take them out to dinner, maybe do a couple of gunbei shots with them, and just build that rapport, build that personal and special relationship. Understand what the cultural nuances as far as or in China specifically. Send them a Chinese New Year gift. Understand when their birthdays are, their kids' birthdays. Thank them when an order is done properly and you receive it. Most of us, we only communicate with our contacts in a very business-like manner. Place the order, everything is good, great. If something goes wrong, we start yelling.
All transactional, right?
Exactly. And you have to make it personal. And if you do make it personal, you then get an advocate within that factory. You get an advocate, and sometimes a lifelong friendship is built just based out of that.
We also, just to that point too, we were talking about it earlier as well, that, specifically in China, this concept of guanxi, right? It's this idea of the relationship, and that this is what matters the most. And it starts with that, and then it grows from that point forward. And I also completely agree that, it's almost the relationship starts first, then the business. Absolutely. And if you take that sort of philosophy, specifically when it comes to this hard truth of product sourcing, one of the hardest truths of product sourcing is getting outside of yourself. Is understanding that the way that you think it has to be done and so on and so forth is not always going to give you the best outcome. And being willing to be a student of the process, to learn from the process, to learn from who's on the other side of the equation. And I think that's quite important, so.
Yeah, I was just going to touch on it. My current GM in China is actually my sales agent. I met him on Alibaba.com. We were having a conversation about a new brand I was launching, and 8 years later, he's now my general manager for my company in Hong Kong. So it just goes to show you that a lot of these stuff that you cultivate early on can really lead to more opportunities down the line from one company to the other. But I think for a lot of the people in the crowd, it's the question remains how do I build a relationship if I'm brand new? If I go on Alibaba.com right now, first time, how do I build that relationship? And the first step is don't overthink it. They're a friend. Don't try to push yourself and force yourself to be someone. Just be yourself. Be personable. Ask them about their day. Ask them about what's going on in their side, and just build that rapport right there, because having an advocate within a factory can be a difference of lowering your MOQ by a little bit, maybe jumping the line in the queue for the production cycle, maybe having that person that can help you negotiate earlier than what you're supposed to negotiate because your volume's not there yet. But if you sell them on your story, if you sell them on your future potential, you sell them on your vision, and then they buy into it, you basically have a partner within your company that is trying to grow with you, and they will pull a lot of strings just to make it happen.
And most of the people that you're transacting over Alibaba with, they're used to the same communication back and forth. But if you come in and you take responsibility for the energy you bring to that conversation, and you make them feel positive, you bring in laughter and joy, and you joke with them, and you get them to sort of become more at ease with you, I can't tell you how big of a shift in just the communication from them you'll see in a positive way. So always, I always emphasize this with our members, that always take responsibility for the energy that you bring to any communication, to any interaction, because it matters. It really matters on what you're going to get back from the person that you're talking with.
Yeah, definitely. I cannot argue anything that you gentlemen have said. And even to further that, Jason, you kind of touched on this too, is anytime a new buyer is going on to Alibaba, they're going to see the product listing, they're going to see features and details. A lot of times you're going to see those MOQs and they might be a little scary. What I've come to find out is, as you develop these relationships with your suppliers, they're going to be flexible with you because they're going to see that you're eager to do business with them. And I'm big on loyalty. So once I identify the supplier that I know is going to consistently produce products, and we don't have to lose sleep over that product and knowing that if there's going to be an issue, I stay with them. And even if something does go wrong, nobody's perfect. They are so willing to make things right if there's something that went wrong. So just touching on what everybody said here, these relationships, this is something that's not necessarily taught, but it's something that we've all learned and we all know. So these relationships, you can't put a value on it, but the more human that you are and the more understanding that you are, things are going to happen. There's holidays that are on their calendar that aren't on our calendar. You can't ask them to come into work. That's not how it works. There's storms. There was a typhoon that just swept through southern China last week. DHL, FedEx, everybody stopped. You could not move packages for 3 to 5 days. And you just have to explain that to your customers if you have a relationship in that sense. If you're a brand, you have to be knowing that things are going to happen, weather or logistics, that you have to navigate through. It's not a perfect system, but if you have the right protocols in place, you can be very successful in consistently bringing new products on. And if you're doing the marketing and you're providing a product that the consumers here in the US or Canada or whatever the market is, they're reacting to and it's growing, you can count on your suppliers to grow with you. So really big on that. We have just a few more minutes left. I think the last thing that I would just like to hear from you guys is expectations. We don't have a crystal ball, but if we did, what do you envision in the next 12 months? Kerim, what do you foresee as far as markets go and how we've been able to adjust over the last 12 months?
I would say what we were talking about earlier, because I believe that it's kind of a shift, as I said before, where we've moved away from kind of chasing the dollar to the more kind of outcome-driven dependability process within sort of global sourcing. I expect this to continue, and not only that, but I expect it to kind of continue to grow and thrive. The more resources that Alibaba continues to roll out that's in line with that, I think is the kinds of things that people are going to want to hear. I think they're going to want to hear those words like verified and trade assurance and things of those nature. I think that this is kind of the music to people's ears when it comes to global sourcing. And I expect that to continue, and we've always been doing that, and we continue to support that. So that's sort of what I see these days.
Jason?
I like to expand on the panel before us, AI. I think we're going to see a lot more application of AI for everyone else. New technology usually trickles down. There's usually a small group of people that will use it, and then everyone else does it. I think we're at that point where people are embracing that, using AI to do research, using AI to do mock-ups. Mock-ups used to take days, maybe 6 hours. Now I can get it in 5-6 minutes. And it just speeds up the process on our work and then from the client side. So we're going to see a lot more applications there, a lot more usage, and I'm frankly very optimistic about where we're heading there. Because it's just, and imagine you get 8 more pairs of hands in that process. For a solopreneur who might not have that resource, you now have that superpower. It's like an Iron Man suit that I'm excited about.
Yeah, technology is definitely empowering the entrepreneur. It's democratizing it.
For sure, and I'm going to piggyback on what Kerim said. I think the concept of having verified suppliers and having going to one place and being able to have that peace of mind that you're working with the right suppliers, that you're not going to get scammed, that you're not going to be taken advantage of is going to become more and more relevant, at least within my world of Amazon, especially newer Amazon sellers, because that had been the norm years ago. So now with all the new innovations and tools and safety guards that Alibaba has put in place, I think it's just going to see more and more robust growth from newer sellers, newer entrepreneurs who are going to be entering the markets.
Great. Well, we want to say thank you. We really appreciate this opportunity to be up here and share how we've been able to solve the hard truths of sourcing. And if you have any questions, feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn or around the conference. We'd be more than glad to understand any challenges you have.
Thank you very much. Truly appreciate it.